So today I finished playing the Star Rail UBW collab, and overall I'd say it was okay. Overall. Now, if I'm talking about the story, that was the worst part about it. That was just decent at best. It had good moments, it had moments of potential, but overall I think it suffers from overall execution and some bad choices in terms of what characters to use. On the other hand, the characters which I was mostly here for are great, and I think the tournament mode can be very enjoyable, although progressing in it does very much so require you to actually have units that will actually be useful and actually understand what those units do. On the easiest mode of it, with the uncorrupted grail, you can choose some units that you don't have, so they actually give you an easy to get out to choose not only good but very useful meta units for this mode specifically. But when you go to the harder ones, then that's all you. While I do appreciate that they try to find reasoning for why certain characters could be where they are. For example, the reason why there are 3 Fated Knight servants here and the rest are quote-unquote Penacony heroic spirits is because the 3 Fated Knight servants are attached to the 3 outsiders, the 3 characters that are in fact not from Penacony. In terms of the heroic spirits of Penacony, they aren't very heroic, and the reason for that is because the world of Honkai Star Rail is a world with little mystery, with no true heroes on Penacony and empty legends, according to Sunday, as we hear from Robin. One of the members of the Genius Society and emanators of Erudition, Screwlum, was able to neutralize the Grail, turning it into a normal Penacony dream bubble. And Robin, one of the selected masters, who is someone from Penacony, actually wants to use her wish to heal the scars that her brother Sunday caused through his actions when he was in power during and even before we got to Penacony. But she realized that she'd be no better than her brother, essentially forcing this change on people, so she gave up her wish. In her case, she has a caster servant, who we later find out is called Asne, or Asen, A-S-N-E, who was also a singer and performer in Penacony, but eventually was jaded when she came back to Penacony, considering not only did she lose her name, which was trademarked and copywritten, but also the things in relation to what she has done on Penacony were the same way. And then we have the assassin servant, who is using the character Rekka as a vessel. This assassin's name is Grady, who is a film director who has made a bunch of flop movies. So clearly 2 very unsuccessful individuals at some point in life are representing these Penacony heroic spirits. Masters are selected as usual Fate fashion, except this time the Grail War is being televised and not secret, which kind of takes away the whole mystery aspect of it, but this world lacked a mystery anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter in the long run. The main character becomes a master, and it seems like they end up failing their summon, and that's when good old Scott shows up. Scott is a comedic relief character who is supposed to be very annoying, so you're supposed to love it when he fails, which he usually does. And Scott has Assassin, so eventually, after some shenanigans where Scott fails to take you out, and you get helped by none other than Lancer Kukulin, who sadly doesn't do much in this story, which partially explains, why he's able to stick around after the event, because he barely did anything and thus didn't use up that much magical energy compared to Emiya and Artoria. But Saber shows up, and now you have your servant, so the team of characters here decide they're gonna meet up. But then Aventurine and Boot Hill end up getting trapped in a reality marble. Following that, so does Robin, Caster Artoria, and the main character. And then we get one of the worst parts of this, the silent film portion, where I put this in Japanese because Saber and Archer don't have English voice acting because of the type of company Hoyoverse is. Archer's VA isn't going to work for them, and Saber's VA is a part of of a union. So it's not that Hoyoverse didn't want to get them, they literally couldn't get them. And in this section, everything is silent, which one of the fun parts about Star Rail is that I can actually listen to characters, hear how they speak and inflect. It adds the experience, but this, while I understand the purpose behind it, kind of took away from this section. Also, this section feels like it goes on a bit too long. It's also very Scott focused, and I think Scott's one of those characters where he can be enjoyable in small bits, but not in extended sections like this. And mind you, this is one of the longer sections when you break it down of this collab story in general. So after we get that done over with, then we have where a caster puts everybody in a dream. And this dream is essentially everybody living a life where they are normal, nothing special, average. She is very much so self-projecting here. So in this case, our Tori never pulls the sword. The main character never becomes a nameless and thus never goes on this adventure that has been Honkai Star Rail. Adventuring never wins any bets, stops gambling, lives a more normal, mundane life, and so on. You get the idea. So what Caster wants is a copyright from her name to not only be receded, as well as the stuff that she's worked on, but she wants to erase herself from Penacony's history as a whole. Now you're wondering, how did Caster get her name back? Well, Robin used her command spells to give Caster her name back. It's really that simple. So after everyone ends up coming out of their dream, the main character takes their bat and Saber takes her sword. They both mirror each other, pulling out their weapons, and then they fight the true menace here, OT, who is not only the one behind the Holy Grail War, but apparently also the master of Berserker, but then becomes a reused boss, and thus they are Berserker in that instance. We have a scripted fight where you have to break one bar and then Saber uses Excalibur, and then it's over, right? So in terms of like the quality of this story could have been better. I will definitely say that it does feel like a Star Rail story. This isn't doing anything different from what other stories I feel have already done. We're using assets, but I don't think the reuse of Finon's home is necessarily a bad one as a whole, considering at the very least it's an asset use that feels like it makes sense because it does feel like it would have those Britain vibes. And technically it would be new if you haven't gotten to Amphorius yet, because that'd be the first time you're seeing it through this event. But overall I would say, while yes, it is an asset reuse, it fits close enough to not feel too jarring environmentally, I'll say. There are also other great moments I feel, idea-wise, using aspects of things that have happened in Fate, recreating those scenes and good character moments. For example, I think the moment with Robin using her command seals to help out Caster, the CG was good. They put some effort on that. So clearly, there is not a complete lack of effort in this collab event. Rather, I felt like most of their effort went into the characters. And then if you want most of the Fate references, you'll get most of that from the tournament mode that you get after beating the story. And then after that, that's where it feels like the remaining effort they could push out went into the story. Yes, some of it went into making some of those really good looking scenes. Sadly, no Archer canonically in the story using Linda Blade Works. Very sad. Hey, could get something similar, I guess. He gets to bring out a bunch of gay balls, and I guess that's close enough to Linda Blade Works, right? And Saber, of course, uses Excalibur. Maybe they should have chose, to put some effort in a different direction. Definitely shorten that Scott section, shorten the Dream section, have Q do more stuff. At least he didn't die, I guess. We have Clara and Swarov that are basically Ilian Berserker of Star Rail, so I mean, you might as well use them, right? I mean, considering, they found a way to bring Sampo and Hook in here, replace one or both of those with the literal Fate Stay Night reference. But, could have been better. Overall, would I play that story again? Not really. I definitely felt it had a lot of moments where it was just boring, tedious. And I was just, at that point, hoping to just have these sections be over with to hopefully get to something more interesting. There are some connections I feel we can make that I definitely think are coincidental, such as the fact that, you know, in Fate Stay Night, Ku normally isn't alongside his master, similar to how he is here with Boot Hill. They're usually not together at all. Hence how Ku was the first one to get caught in the dream, or how Ku was the first one to try to take out the competition, like Scott, as well as the main character before summoning Saber. And of course there's Aventurine, whose name is Aventurine, and Archer's master in Stay Night is Reen. And Reen and Archer do have back and forths, and Aventurine and Archer have back and forths. Although I think Archer actually likes Reen compared to Aventurine, and Saber is just here being Saber. Good old Saber. Yeah, well, otherwise, that's all I really gotta say on this one. I do like how in the tournament mode though, it actually takes some of the characters and actually gives them like status pages where it determines like what class is this character, or like what would their stat distribution be like, what would their abilities be like. So hey man, at the very least, if you ever want to use these characters in a Fate Stay Night, Fate anything, hey, you have the stats, you have what their abilities would be, you have a class. That's something. Put in the work in for that. So it just goes to show where they were more focused and trying to give you that Fate feel within this game. And there's one thing I can give this event, that it made me want to play Star Rail so I could have the characters. But eventually playing through it, Amphorius as later half made me want to stay for the characters and the story to see where it ends up. But tell me what you guys think if you played it, or why you didn't play it, and you can check out the video on the screen for more